Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another video. Today we're going to be talking about font pairings and a little bit about typography to help you improve your layout design. Let's go ahead and jump in, but first roll the intro. So I've got Illustrator open here. We're going to look at just some different font rules and help you guys kind of learn how to put fonts together in a way that makes sense to the reader and improves the communication of your design. The most important thing is that you realize what different types of fonts are out there so that you know kind of what's in your arsenal when you're doing typography work. There are 6 kind of basic classifications of fonts, might vary by who you talk to, but they're basically serif, a sans serif, a slab serif, a script, and then there's display and hand-drawn fonts. The main 4, the serif, sans serif, slab serif, and script, are the ones that you use the most, while display fonts and hand-drawn fonts are usually more for special occasions. Serifs are identifiable by their wings or their little serifs, while sans serifs are completely smooth. Slab serifs are just like serifs, but they are almost like punchy. They have the slab lettering for their serifs, kind of straight angles. Script fonts are cursive fonts. Display fonts are fonts that are specifically used for kind of decoration. They're like decorative fonts. And then hand-drawn or handwritten fonts. Sometimes these can also be script fonts. They're fonts that look like somebody penned them with their hand. Each one of these font classifications has a different style and different feel, and it communicates something to your readers. So it's important to realize what font type you're using and then use it effectively to communicate. Now, when you're laying out design, the best way to pair fonts is to use one. And that way you don't have to pair anything. And if you use a really great font, you really have nothing to worry about because you can use that one font for everything and it'll all match and it'll all look the same. But if you want to use more than one font, you should keep it to a maximum of 2, maybe 3, but really, let's stick to 2 fonts. Now, why is that and how do we do that? Well, let me show you. Alright, let's get rid of this. Let's look at the rules for font pairing. So, right here, I've got headline and body copy. And right now, everything is the same. It is all Montserrat Light at 14 point font. If you're going to be mixing fonts, you should always mix 2 different families. Remember, we just talked about the 6 different families, and I would tend to avoid using the display fonts and the handwritten fonts, so let's just say 4 families. You should avoid mixing the same. It doesn't look right. You can tell the fonts are the same, they're very similar, but they're just not exactly matching. And that creates kind of a conflict in the design. So we don't want to do that. The easiest way to do this is to actually mix a serif with a sans serif. Here we have a sans serif font in the body copy for most of the type, and we mixed it with a serif headline. Just looking back and forth, they fit a little bit better. They're 2 different styles. They're 2 different classifications of font. So that's the first tip. The second tip is if you're going to mix 2 different fonts, you should double the heading size or greater. Let's go back to this example here where we've got Montserrat, and they're both the same. Now right now, we've got Montserrat at 14 for the body and 14 for the header. One of the easiest ways to create visual hierarchy and visual contrast is to double the headline size. So instead of 14, we're going to go ahead and double this. That already looks worlds better. You can tell that this is the first read at headline and body copy comes second. When you mix that combination with the next tip, and the next tip is bold your headlines. You should always choose to skip weights. So here we have light and light, and it kind of makes it really hard to differentiate. We helped a little bit by doubling, but if we go ahead and actually double the headline size or thickness, and we go to like a bold headline, we've created more visual hierarchy. I always recommend at least going two above. So if we have a light headline, I wouldn't go with regular, it's too close. You should at least go with medium. In this case, probably semi-bold, because medium and light are still very similar. This creates better visual hierarchy for your designs. In the same case, if we're going to mix fonts, let's just go back to the one that we were looking at earlier. Instead of doing this headline, which is light, instead of doing light, we should probably do, something bold. This creates good visual hierarchy while applying the rules of mixing font classifications to create a dynamic typography layout. Just going back to this real quick, if you're gonna pick different font families, make sure you pick different classifications of fonts. This shows you side by side where we have Montserrat and Helvetica versus Montserrat and Arno. There's a big difference in the way that these fonts look and feel, and this over here on the right hand side looks much cleaner than this because these fonts are too similar. So you want to avoid picking similar fonts. Make sure that they're different enough that they can stand alone. Again, going back to what we just talked about, side-by-side example here, you can see the bold headline versus the headline that is almost the same weight as the body copy. This layout on the right-hand side, again, much more dynamic. And if we take this a step farther and we go back down to 14 point, you can see that there's just no visual hierarchy whatsoever because we don't have that font size at least double. Now, just because it's at least double doesn't mean you can't go greater than double. We can make this headline much bigger for more dramatic impact, but at least double the size of the body copy. The last thing that you need to watch out for is mixing different moods. This is an example of mixing different moods. This is a big no-no. Here, we obeyed the rules of font pairing. We doubled the headline. We made it bold. We made the body copy light or regular. We made it double in point size. We chose different classifications. Here we have kind of more of a display font, and here we have a serif font. But we mixed moods. What you have to understand about fonts is that every font has its own unique personality, and you have to pair those personalities together. Here we have an Old English headline, which has a very gothic handwritten feel to it, and for the body copy, we used a serif font called Courier New. And serif fonts are great for body copy, but this one is particularly modern. It has very sharp serifs and almost a typewriter feel to it. They don't blend with the handwritten Gothic style font that we have for the headline. The moods are totally different, and so when we can't pair these two fonts successfully because of their conflicting personalities. A much better option in this case would be to pair a sans serif font that also has a modern feel with the body copy of Courier New to make it feel a little bit more like a family. Well, there you go, guys. There's just a quick surface level look at font pairing. I hope you enjoyed this and learned something. If you did, hit that like button, leave me a comment, make sure you subscribe to the channel. You don't want to miss any of the videos coming up. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.